We got Ann Kimbrough here. We are featuring our community, and we are indie writers talking about the industry. So, Ann, thank you for coming on.
Happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, well, you're such a resourceful knowledge, especially when it comes to the producerly things of our industry, right? And
I try.
yeah, and we all know how great of a screenwriter you are. So we're really honored to have you come on and discuss.
And I'm a mentor. I had to
You
win
are.
my award.
You
I
are.
love it.
You're such an amazing. You are a great teacher. I mean, I followed your podcast and I think it's fantastic. And the amount of truth that you deliver to people, but you delivered in a way that's earnest. You delivered in a way that is meant to help others, and it's not snarky. It's not elitist at all. And I think that's why you've created such a following and why you ended up getting the award.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we're just glad to have you on and to hear your thoughts on uh, uh, pitching, because it's so difficult to do, especially if you're a writer that stays at home. And in this day and age, it's difficult to be an extrovert when you tend to be more of an introvert with writers. So, tell us about what you're doing right now, because I know that you've moved beyond screenwriting with the producer field.
Right. I have a writing producing partner, Sharika Murr, and we got out there last year. That was our big push, is that we had a lot of scripts we had developed ourselves and written. And so we were out there taking meetings at like Sony and anyone
Wow.
that could fund stuff. And we went really far with a lot of really great people, but we weren't able to put anything together.
Okay.
Although we kept a lot of doors open. So a lot of people still wanted to see us again for newer things. And you just never really know why. It's sort of funny because I thought getting on the producer side, it would eliminate some of that issues you would have as a screenwriter, that you never know why they say no, or they don't come back to you when you email
Right.
them or pitch them.
Yeah.
It doesn't change for producers. It's the same thing. You do, but you feel like you get so much further. I mean, you're in the room, you're pitching, they get to see you face to face, and you can still come up empty, just going, well, God, that was such a great meeting.
Yeah. You
But
kind of get ghosted, don't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it happens all along the path to success. So
Yeah.
take heart in that. I mean, we just felt like we were getting in the right rooms, and all the people that we met with, we could go back to with new stuff.
Yeah.
But for us, so it made us at the end of the year focus on gaining life rights to projects that we thought were really cinematic.
Okay.
And that comes with a whole nother kind of pitching, which is trying to convince someone to trust you with their life story. And so there's a lot of pitfalls to that. We could do a whole show on that.
Oh yeah, no, I just came off of a gig where I ended up doing a life story of somebody, and their life is literally in your hands as a writer, and
It really is.
it is a whole lot of pressure, and you want to do them justice. So yeah, I could imagine that's a whole different thing. That's
Well,
a
and
whole
it's hard to
separate.
secure the life rights. People don't understand that most of those projects start out and remain low budget.
Yeah.
So you can't offer someone $1 million for their life rights, or
Yeah.
even $100,000, because then you could never set it up anywhere.
Exactly.
So that's one of the problems we've run into. We found some great stories. So what we ended up doing was we actually got hooked up with our managers to a lady to start at ground zero with her and write her memoir.
Okay.
So we wrote a book proposal for her, and that's actually out now to publishers that we're trying to
Cool.
set it up. And she has an amazing story, which I don't need to go into, but what was great for us is that we at least found someone that we could attach ourselves to the project as writers at the beginning when it was a book. And that will give us the trajectory to be able to be a part of it. We're all part of it. We're all a team now. And that, I think, is a great way to approach life rights when someone doesn't really want to lose that control.
Yeah, you could start as a book and then you could build out from there into featured television or whatever and kind of
Exactly.
expand it. Yeah, that's really a good business model. Well, we're getting some questions coming in on the
Okay.
Facebook group. So if you don't mind, Caroline Buchholz wants to know, and this sounds difficult, so good luck with this one. Can you break down pitching to its simplest form? Oh,
Well, okay. Well, so now I'm going to assume that most people that come to you have already gotten great advice from you about how to pitch. You know,
yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So I would say I would like you to, for all screenwriters, to look at it from the point of view of a producer. And if you look at it from that way, because I used to be like that. I used to be that screenwriter. You had to have the exact perfect log line, and you had to have, the paragraph. You had to have the one sheet that
Absolutely.
pitched your
Yeah.
whole outline. You had to have all that, and I always fretted over what part I would share, or what should it be in the email? What should you do in person? And producers don't think like that, and they don't
Okay.
care. So don't worry about doing it wrong. There are two main things that producers look at. Maybe there's three, but one is that they want to know that you have a good story. So it needs to be non-confusing. It needs to be simple to understand.
Simple to
I mean,
understand.
yeah, because that's one thing I've noticed when I've received pitches, either in person or through email,
Mm-hmm.
is that they're very confusing. You're trying to throw all this
Too
information
much.
into one thing. So like I made one up. It was like, a sexy elephant trainer loses a bet to enter the Olympics. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, can't grasp anything in that.
Yeah.
So a better pitch, not for that idea, because that idea is ridiculous, but a better one, let's see, I wrote down one, see if you know this movie. It's like, I've got a comedy about a lawyer who can't lie for 24 hours.
Yeah, that's great.
That's liar, liar.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
but that's really clear. I know exactly what it's going to be, and it sounds funny, and I can grasp it. So as a producer, that to me is the best thing, especially if you're in person. If you start with a short pitch like that, and then you stop talking, and you let them respond. You let
Yeah,
them
I love that.
hear it and take it in and go, oh, that's cool, and let them ask you a question. So
I
then,
think that's great. I think that's great. Keeping it simple is really important. I know a lot of times with writers, they can't keep it simple because their concept isn't simple, and it comes. So that tells you right there that the writing can be affected by it even.
sure. But most stories aren't simple because there's plots or subplots and you don't necessarily know what to say. So you do have to, but I think for writers, if you know that you don't have to tell the whole story in one sentence, like we are taught with log lines, when you pitch, you don't have to do that. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, you need a log line, don't get me wrong,
right.
but those are tools and they aren't useful when you're pitching because they can confuse people way too easy. So number
Yeah,
one is don't confuse and
don't.
don't feel, you want to entice them more like, oh, I've got a comedy and this is what it's about. And they'll be
So
like, oh, okay.
so you're telling the readers, listeners to not just pitch the log line, but to pitch the story itself in a simple way, but in a way that makes the listener, the producer, want to know more.
Want to know more, want to ask
Okay.
you questions. Of course, that's obviously when you're face to face, but even in like a written format, I would still say start with that first paragraph is simple. This
Simple.
is the kind of movie I have, and this is what it's about in its purest form.
So some of the pitching tips I've always heard, and I've always wondered if this actually helps or not, but they'll say before you pitch the project, pitch what inspired the project. How do you feel about that?
So I would go back to the thing is it's not, that's not wrong. That's interesting, and many producers would like that because you could basically say, well, I'm a fireman and I live this story.
Okay.
That would be, I'd be like, yeah, that's great. That gives
Okay.
me, you're being very authentic. I know I'm going to get an authentic story. So whatever that connection is, sure, that's a great opening line in person or in writing.
So if
And
it's more of a personal story, it works. But unless you're a serial killer pitching a thriller, it's
yeah, don't
probably
do
not going to work so much.
that. Well,
Very
there are
good.
many angles in, but
Yeah.
I mean, remember, it's a conversation. If you remember, it's like a conversation, and you never want it to be one-sided or like you're throwing up all this information. You do need to know your story, though, because
Yeah.
you need to be able and comfortable answering questions about it without then getting confusing.
No,
It's
I
almost
think
like
that's good.
your little tidbits. You need little tidbits of facts that are really interesting about your story, because you don't want to say too much. You want to say just enough so they read your script. That's the goal.
Yeah, it feels kind of
Get the request,
yeah,
right?
short but powerful bursts, and almost more after you get it out there and you've pitched it to them, then it becomes more of an active listening exercise where you get questions from them and then you answer them, but you don't get too long and drawn out about it.
Right. Because the other things that a producer is looking for is that it's someone they can work with. And
Okay.
so if you come across desperate or that you can't tell them something simply, they'll be like, can I work with them?
Yeah, I mean
Are they going to
that's a
go
great
nuts
point.
on me and disappear? I mean, that's a huge producer fear, is that they find a story they like and a writer that sort of shows up on their doorstep, but then they're gone. And they're like, ooh, what happened?
Well, that's that's very insightful.
Happens.
Yeah. So when you're pitching more than your work. You're pitching yourself. You're pitching yourself as a writer and who you are. I love that. That's such a great tip.
I would say you're pitching more yourself than your story. All you're
Oh,
trying to
look at that.
pitch, I would, because most producers, they're going to have to work with you on your story. I mean, I've tried to
Hmm.
option scripts that when we started to option them, the writer went nuts over just a standard contract,
Uh,
and it fell apart because I'm like, if they're doing this on a standard contract, how are they going to be when we want to rewrite parts of the script?
yeah.
It's just not going to work. So
No,
all
that's
of
a good
that
point.
matters.
Yeah, I mean that says a lot. As a writer, we have to be flexible. We have to be able to change the story. Everybody's eventually going to want their voice in it one way or another. And if we're too married to this thing, if this thing's too much of our baby and it won't change, you're not going to sell it. It's not going to get made. I mean, that's just
Everybody's going to
simple.
want to give you notes. Everybody. It's
Everybody.
endless.
Oh
The farther you
man.
go in the project, the more notes you'll get, because once they put on a director, the director will want notes, and they might be a director writer, so that's even worse.
Oh, you're telling
And
me.
and then every actor wants to give you notes and
Yeah.
will.
Oh yeah.
And if you can't take the producer is going to be the nicest person, because the other thing too, by the way, that the producer is looking for is cost of your idea. So, I know in Caroline's question, she was asking also about how you know who to pitch to. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things is
Mm-hmm.
to know what that person or that group or production company, what they make. Does your script fit what they're making, and not just in genre, but in budget?
Okay.
Because
That's a great. Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
because you're
very good
gonna,
question.
obviously you never quite know what people are doing, but what they have done is a good indication
Yeah.
of what they are looking for. So
It's tricky though because sometimes they get stuck in their own budget, but then sometimes they want to change and they want to do something else. You could be
you
with,
never know.
yeah, you could be with a producer that just makes dramas, and then they just decide, oh, I'm going to do comedy now, and you're like, but I was pitching you this drama, yeah.
Well, that's why you have more than one idea.
That's true.
But even beyond that is, remember that most producers are going to probably want to hire you to write their idea.
There
I
it
know
is.
obviously people are optioned, their scripts are optioned and they get made, but many more screenwriters, whatever you're pitching is just a writing sample, and they
There you
just
go,
want to see they
folks.
can.
I mean, straight out of the mouth of a producer. I've been saying this for years now, that your script you're trying to get out there is your calling card. It is your resume. And here we have a producer who's taken scripts, who's had work get made and sent out in international distribution deals, telling you right here that your script is great, but you're probably just going to get hired to write what they want. And I think that is wonderful. Thank you so much for that.
You're
We have some more questions here if you're still
welcome.
game. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's see. Malcolm Taylor asks, what common questions should we expect to be asked in a pitch meeting? I'm assuming he's asking like follow-up questions after you've done the
Mm-hmm.
pitch.
But they'll probably ask you some questions about, your story, whatever you first told them. If anything is confusing, or just more clarity. So you need to know your
Clarity.
story.
Okay.
How to simply tell it and fill in the blanks. Once again, you do know your story, and
Yeah.
it's a conversation. So you're just in conversation mode, talking like you and I are talking right now.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing to stress over. And it's not, no, you know, I mean, you will have those people that are like, well, who would you cast in the lead role? I have to tell you that I probably don't think that producer is really legit, or they aren't really
Uh,
going to take your script, because they are not going to ask you.
a real producer doesn't ask that. I mean, that's funny that you
No.
say that, because that literally rolls into the very next question we had,
Okay.
which was from Rebecca McAuliffe, who asked, "Is there a way to determine who's the real deal or not?" And so there you go. If they start fantasy
Yeah.
casting on you, then that's good to
Yeah.
know.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you have optioned a script with someone, they might say, "Give me a list of who you see in this, because we're going to go out to people." That's different.
That's
In a
different.
pitching session, they don't need your advice about how to cast. They don't need your advice of what the budget is. They don't need any of that advice. They just need to know they can work with you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to say across the board that that's the sign, but to me, that's like the stock question they ask when they, or if I decided no,
Yeah, I think that's a
you
that's
know,
that's a good point. I
from
I
my
also
pitching
think,
days.
but I also think you do your research. When I pitch somebody, I learn about them. I Google them,
Mhm.
not in a weird way, just in I want to know what they're doing,
Yes, you
and I
should
want to
slightly
know what
stalk them. Well,
I
it's
I want to
good
know what
to,
they've made. So
you should
I
ask
yeah,
them questions too. I would say that's a
yeah.
great thing to have, to say, hey, I love this movie you did. You worked with so-and-so. How are they? I mean,
Absolutely. And you create that kind of relationship, and
yeah.
it becomes more of a conversation. Absolutely. Yes, very good. Let's see. We have one more question. When pitching to you as the writer, go in knowing the format of your script, movie versus series, or would you let them decide on both? So I think he's trying to decide, because I have some clients that come in and they have an open concept and they're not sure how to figure if it should be a feature or a television show. And I would go in personally pitching what I want it to be. So, and I wouldn't pitch something I haven't written already anyway.
Yeah.
So
Good
pitching
advice.
just a concept is dangerous. I'm not going to say I haven't done it, but when it
Me too.
happened,
But
yeah.
I knew what it was. I knew it was a movie, or you. I don't think you would ever come across a situation where you would do that to a producer and say, "What do you want it to be?" Because they
I would
kind of
let them.
specialize. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not that, it's like, as for us as producers, it's not that we aren't going to go out with a TV project, sure, but we have set projects, and even though an idea can be both, you need to go in and say, this is what it is, and you need to have a script. Maybe with a manager, your own personal manager, you could do stuff like that, but
yeah, and you
otherwise
can
I
you
don't
can
see.
suss it out together, definitely, with
Yeah.
the manager, because they're going to tell you where they want it, where they feel it should go
Yeah.
anyway. But with a producer, you definitely need to already have a direction and a vision for it, and then down the line, after they option it and they decide, this should really try. Let's try and make it a series. Then be open to it. Don't argue.
Yes, there you go. I totally agree. Now, I have to say my producing partner feels differently about this. We've
Oh,
had this
okay.
discussion. So if you have a writing partner like that, because I know a lot of people do write with partners, if you go pitch together, you need to have a little discussion with each other about what you're going to say and offer, and be flexible about.
Yeah,
Because I mean, because he comes at it more from the producing side, where I come at it more from the screenwriting side, right? Where
yeah,
as the screenwriter, you're like, sure, I can make it anything.
that's
But
awesome.
as a producer, you should no, he doesn't
You
like
should
that.
know it. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, he doesn't like to waffle. He doesn't like us to say, yeah, we can do anything, because that's not how producers think. So I try to take a clue from that from him, that if we go in, this is what we're pitching. This is the
Yeah,
story. Buy
yeah.
this. No, we don't want to go into development hell with you and never actually get a contract as we continue to change stuff for you.
Yeah, and I think that's something that writers don't realize is they've written the script, and I think sometimes writers, I mean, newer writers, they just think, just buy it. Can't you just buy it and make it? And they don't realize this is a whole business. I mean, we have to meet a demographic. We have to make sure the story is right. We have to make sure the character is right for the casting. I mean, there's, and that's not even getting into budget concerns. So there's so much rewriting and rewriting and reworking and redeveloping that goes through into a project that
There is.
on your end, it is just so much work that a writer isn't even aware of. And
It's
then
true. When they aren't calling you, it's not because they're sitting there just doing nothing. They're waiting. They're sitting there actually waiting for someone to get back to them. But the one thing is there are different kind of producers, and I don't know if you've ever spoken to that to your community.
Yeah, go ahead.
But so like my partner and I, we're creative producers, so we don't have funding. I mean, I'd love to get to that point in our life, but then there are people that have funding, which means they've got money that they can actually option a script right away. We have to take on a project and then take it to those people. Which that happens a lot. There's a lot of producers like that are in some ways middlemen, but we go on to the project and produce it with this new entity that has the money.
Yeah, partnerships.
So it's important to know who you're pitching to and what they can do, what they have done, have some sense of the context, so you know that you're not wasting your time with people that can't do anything. Right?
No, I think that's a really good point, and I think that comes down to research as well, because anybody can call themselves a producer. I can call myself a producer. Technically, I've done it, but does that mean that I'm a producer? I'm an Ann Kimbrough? No,
oh, please,
yes,
you are.
Not at all.
Look,
I don't have a fancy award though.
You don't. But this is not a producing award. This is a mentor award that's gorgeous, and it's heavy, guys. This is so heavy. I love it.
She always has it on her, just so you know.
Yeah, I carry it around. I've got like this little thing I could like for a baby. Carrier. I can.
That is her Script Summit Mentor Award, and we're really honored to actually have her.
I'm honored.
So, is there anything else you wanna discuss before we talk about what you're doing right now?
Yeah. So those are my big things. Is you remember that pitching. It's a conversation. There is no one answer of this is how you should pitch.
Okay.
People will give you many answers. But I still feel like it's start the conversation. I've had people that pitch because with our company's media distribution partners. So we're out there and people pitch us, just send us emails all the time. And we try to respond to all of them. But right now we're not actually trying to actively.
Well, I mean, right now with the business, the business is everybody. Yeah.
But even before that, we were working on. We were sort of full up with the projects we were trying to set up.
Okay.
So you just you can't consider other projects or give it the proper amount of time.
Yeah, if you got a lot of overhead. Yeah.
I've had a lot of people though recently, or not a lot of people. I had this one guy that just keeps emailing me. So he emailed me a very long email of pitching me stuff. And I wrote him back and said, no, we're not available right now.
Yeah.
We're not taking anything on. Thank you. Maybe get back in touch with us in 6 months kind of deal. And he emailed me twice last week with new ideas.
I mean, that's nice of you to even respond and tell them that you're full. I mean, usually you just kind of get ghosted and then
As a screenwriter, I feel it's my duty to respond. I guess
a good person.
I'm sure I'll hit a point where I don't. I'm the only one that responds for my company because that's my job. That's my job.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, I guess it's like understand that if someone does respond to you, follow what they say. Because most producers you won't even hear from them unless they're interested.
Yeah.
But just it's like making a new friend. You want them to go, hey, they're pretty cool. And then you can follow up in like 6 months, even if you haven't heard from them. That's normal. I mean, I don't mind a normal.
Like a 6 months type of thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I mean, if you've sent something, I know, God, it sounds like forever. But, you're hopefully contacting more than one producer about your stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you feel that you should do like a shotgun approach with pitching, or do you feel it should be more of a targeted approach?
I've always done targeted.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say don't, but if you're sending it out to people that you don't know if that's even something they're purchasing or if they're purchasing, I mean, you're just kind of setting yourself up to be sad.
I mean, I get pitches from people and I don't even have a production company, and I get pitches from around the world.
Time. That's a waste of somebody's time because every time you send out a pitch, you're hoping to hear something back. So to me, that's like, why am I putting myself up for something that I'm never going to get if you did a little research, you'd never get anything back.
Yeah, I've gotten pitches from like big people too, like the number one karate champion in Russia pitches me stuff,
Wow.
and I'm like, dude, I can't. They make movies in Russia. Make them in Russia. You know people.
Well, that's it. That guy's got a great thing. I'm the number one karate guy in Russia. I'm like, okay.
That's the only thing I remember.
I would read the rest of that email. I mean, like, what I'm saying is, if he pitched it to the right people making those movies, like
Exactly.
I don't make karate movies, so I wouldn't be the right person.
No, I agree. It's crazy.
But I would be the right person in the sense of probably he has a great true story. Everyone likes true stories right now. That's always a good genre.
Well, I can hook you up with him.
Thanks a lot. You're such a friend.
I know. I'm so helpful. Well, what are you doing lately? What's going on? I heard you have a pretty awesome. It's an audio drama, right?
Yes. So this is just something I'm doing on my own, as I wanted to have something more to show for my personal writing at the end of the day, because I felt like my partner and I put a lot of effort into last year with our projects. And like I said, that it's a long haul. That's a long forward kind of project. To get a movie set up takes years.
Yeah.
And I feel like last year we were building relationships, and it's just a matter of bringing the right project to several people that we really want to work with, and the opportunities there. But at the end of the year, I look back and go, well, what did I create? And so I wanted to next year, or the end of this year, I wanted to be able to say, oh, hey, I created something. So I finally turned to podcasting, because it's something I've been telling people forever, that there's a thing called fiction podcasts or audio dramas. And they're basically like radio shows, right? But podcasting is huge.
They are. It is harking back to the old times of our grandparents. And here we're all acting like it's this brand new thing. And I'm like, guys, yeah.
Well, I think we're approaching it differently. And most podcasts are nonfiction. They're news stories or
funny,
true life crimes, or funny.
Yeah.
So the audio dramas are a smaller segment, but they're very popular. And there've been two huge success stories that I know of. Homecoming and Lore, 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 have both been made. Like Homecoming's on, Julia Roberts on Netflix. That started as a podcast.
Cool. That's a good. So it's a good way to get your foot in the door.
And there's different kinds of audio dramas. To me, that I recently went to Podfest 2020 in Orlando before the world changed. Pre just everything. At the beginning of March. If it had happened a week later, I probably would have had to cancel everything. But
that was
back when we thought we were still okay. And I've been back and basically in quarantine since then, so I'm okay. I survived.
Geez. Yeah.
But I learned a lot, and it was really great. And podcasters too, what's great about them, they're very friendly and helpful, and I got a lot of good advice about how to do stuff. So I actually was very encouraged to do my first podcast. And like I said, there's two kind of audio dramas. One is like you're reading it. It's more like, I call it an enhanced
like a narrative
audio book on steroids kind of thing,
okay,
where you have sound effects and music. So that's what my first one was. I decided I would try that. The other version is like a voice theater.
Oh yeah, that's cool. So what are?
So I'm working on a new one for that too. But
what are they called, and where can we find them?
Well, you can go to podranger.com is my website, where I post all the links
cool.
to any show I will ever create. But the first one is it's actually a YA fantasy, so kind of more for the girls. It's called Lyric, Mother of a Fairy Tale.
All right, cool.
And I only have one episode up, but I'm working on the second.
All right.
Yeah. And that was basically the version where I'm reading you a story, doing the voices.
It's fantasy, like obviously fairies and elves and stuff?
No, it's actually not fairies. It has more magic. It's magical based. And it's about a college student that learns she has this magical family legacy.
Oh, that's cool. Did you guys see how she was pitching it to me?
I did. I was
It's
just
and the
pitching.
world comes full circle.
See, all these screenwriter skills are so useful for many, many things.
Awesome.
But I do feel like audio dramas. I'm writing scripts that are very much like television scripts.
That is so, yeah, we'll have to chat some other time offline
We
about
can.
what the
Definitely.
format would be for that, because I'm always intrigued by new formats.
It's good to
There's
learn.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's like YouTube's writing, that's a whole
Yeah.
different format. So it's all crazy. Well, we'll put those links up
Thank
on the
you.
Facebook group,
Yeah,
and
they're free. Everything, everything I'm doing with podcasting is free. Most of podcasts are free.
that's
So
awesome.
take a listen.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna definitely check it out, and love having you on, and
Thank you. This was
so
good doing
glad.
this. I'm sorry it didn't work on Facebook, but we found a way around it. That's all that
Yeah,
matters.
and that's what a screenwriter does. We
Yes.
don't panic or freak out. We just, okay, how do we make this work?
We